Welcome to Happy Planet, an impact economy podcast where we speak with entrepreneurs, investors, and thought leaders in search of profit and planetary health. I'm your host, Abigail Carroll. Today we're going to follow the journey of one explosive company that's upcycling possibly the ugliest part of the lobster and transforming it into what appears to be a powerful skincare ingredient. Patrick Breeding is the CEO of Marin Skincare, which he co-founded with his partner Amber Boutiette. Amber struggled with debilitating eczema and couldn't find relief in any skincare products on the market. That is, until their bioengineering research in collaboration with Maine's Lobster Institute led them to experiment with lobster glycoproteins. When Amber's skin quickly cleared up in response to their early formula, they got to work launching Marin Skincare. Now, as partners with Luke's Lobster, they're putting this lobster waste byproduct to use, and, forgive the pun, they have a long list of people itching to use their cream. Welcome to the podcast, Patrick.
Thank you so much for having me.
Patrick, I'm really eager to talk more about your product, but first I'd like to know a little bit more about you. Are you from Maine? What brought you to Maine? And how did you come to found Marin Skincare?
Yeah, I'm not from Maine. I'm from away. I'm from Connecticut and grew up a very normal middle-class Connecticut life. And high school is where my life kind of diverged from normal. When I was in 10th grade, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And myself and my family started to experience the things that you go through when you have a family member that goes through chemo and radiation. You start to wake up to the world and the hard realities of the world. And for me, I started to wake up to the beginning of what I consider to be my purpose, which is helping bring quality of life back to others. As a high schooler, it was just a form of being there for my dad as much as I could be, which I wish I could have done more of. But as that translated out of high school, I started to apply to biomedical engineering programs. So how could I take these engineering principles, healthcare principles, the intersection of biology, science, chemistry, math, physics, and create tools or solutions to help people that really need it? And so I found myself getting accepted in a great scholarship to the University of Maine. They were trying to bring people in from away, and I'm so glad they did. And they really hooked me. I love Maine. I love the lifestyle of being able to work hard at things that you're passionate about and have a very close geographical and just spiritual and emotional connection to nature and the planet and the community here. So I went through undergrad and I had this guiding purpose, but I didn't really know how to apply it or apply myself. And going through school, I would say that, again, I was a little bit of a normal student, a prolifically B and C student. And if I wasn't doing activities where I wasn't diverging from academic exercises and engaging in applied knowledge, it really didn't interest me very much because
Interesting.
For me, it wasn't about learning for the purpose of learning as much as it was for learning for the purpose of service. So I didn't feel like I woke up as a student and then the early stages of an entrepreneur until I had the experience of having a job in a chemistry lab one summer between sophomore and junior year, where I had the ability to actually look at problems in the real world, devise my own solutions, devise my studies to go and develop and execute and prove or disprove hypotheses and really do real things that I could bring into the real world. The other more important aspect of that experience was that I was no longer treated like the student or the child. I was treated like a competent adult and professional. And it was really interesting to see everything about my life turn around. My grades, my performance, my whole self just turned into such a more mature professional, ready to go. And that guided me to work in a couple different labs. And I think the most important thing about biomedical engineering was combining science, chemistry, biology, physics, math in the intersection of that and being able to speak all of the languages.
Well, I think that's really interesting about the way science works, and you come at it with a hypothesis and then you test the hypothesis and you're really problem solving. These are all things at the core of entrepreneurship. So it sounds like your training in science really provided a very fertile ground for you to learn how to actually become an entrepreneur and think about the world that way.
I would absolutely agree. And I would say that the physical experiences that I was involved in, from the coursework to the extracurricular work, was really it. The work after 9 p.m. and just in the middle of the night, and it's just me running around to the machine shop and the wood shop and making different things to experiment. That's where the real growth happens. But I would also put that with the life experiences I was having with my dad, his multiple battles with cancer, and he passed away Christmas morning of my final year in grad school. And what that does to you as a person, you develop a deep level of empathy, emotional intelligence, and the other things that you really need that I would say are almost equally or more important than all of the engineering and skills that I learned is how to develop my mind and myself. But I would go back to what you just said, is it is very important to learn and understand how to look at systems as an engineer and how to look at the scientific process. And I didn't realize it until a few years later, but what you're really developing is first principles. Everything is made up of fundamental rules and processes and things that govern how it works. And so when you approach things like that and you learn how to think about things like that, you can deconstruct and rebuild and build new systems, products, processes, anything. I think that was the most important part of engineering school, was developing first principles.
Right. And sometimes it's not the product that's new, it's the innovation is actually in the process. There's so many lessons therein. It's really, really cool. Let's start with the Lobster Institute. I love that in Maine, there's something called the Lobster Institute. So tell me a little bit more about that, because part of your education you spent at the Lobster Institute. Is that correct?
Well, it was actually in collaboration with it. So I started grad school in biomedical engineering, starting my master's. Anyway, we built this microscope and we wanted to figure out what we could do with it. We wanted to do cool projects with it. You can construct better 3D models of things. You can look at more intricate cellular processes, and in a very archetypically Maine way, was introduced to the director of the Lobster Institute from a neighbor that my family had in Goldsboro, Maine. So he owned a lobster boat tour business in Bar Harbor, and he introduced us to Dr. Bob Baer, who was this famous lobster scientist. He's been the director of the Lobster Institute for decades, and Bob was always interested in researching different ways that we could use different parts of the lobster that aren't used in an effort to move towards 100% utilization. Bob, like I was particularly interested in biotechnology and medical applications of byproducts, from the shell to the proteins in their circulatory fluid. It's actually a funny story. Bob was always doing K through 12 exercises of going out and teaching kids about the lobster industry. And it's important to be able to discern between a male and a female. And it was hard sometimes to show people the difference in the male and female parts. So Bob's idea initially was actually to 3D print in 100x blown up lobster genitalia, and he could bring it to his demonstrations to show people. I used the 3D printer at night when nobody was really paying attention and got this lobster thing printed, and he would bring it around and show people. He brought it to my advisor and gave it to my advisor. And she was so excited with this new project. It's so cool, biomedical engineering with lobstering. And she put this on her table thinking it was one of the swimmerettes, but it was a penis. And she, all of the new faculty members and the deans and the collaborators and students she would bring in, she would show them this lobster penis. And only months later did she realize, but that was my funny experience with that. And after we metaphorically and literally banged that project out, I was telling Bob about my drive to help people. He said, well, I've actually been working on this thing, kind of moonlighting, using the proteins in the lobster's circulatory fluid for these different applications. So Bob had always been reading this literature on how these proteins allow the lobster to fight off diseases, heal wounds, and highly involved in their ability to pop off and regenerate limbs. There was a lot of literature evidence to show that it could help do things from antiviral to maybe even anti-cancer, to what was very little studied and investigated was repairing different elements of the skin barrier. And so Bob had been doing some in vitro work, and he'd also had patch tested this homemade cream he used. He took the lobster's circulatory fluid and combined it with petroleum jelly and started to apply it on things just to see if it would work. And he started seeing some success. This was very timely for us at the time of him telling us about this and reading the literature, because my partner Amber had been going through for years, and her whole life, but particularly for the last few years, horrible eczema flares all over her body, red, dry, itchy, flaky skin. It looked kind of like a flesh-eating virus. And I watched her go through undergrad, and it got worse in grad school. She started to hide behind hats, scarves, hoodies. And, not only was it itchy and painful, but it was distracting and embarrassing. And it really took away. She didn't want to go out and socialize with friends anymore. She didn't want to go to class. She wanted to do everything remotely. It really took over her life. And Amber's not alone. Eczema and psoriasis affect over 10% of the world population. It's just very little talked about. They just go buy the whatever cream at CVS and hope it works and just try to mitigate the problem. We were always looking for new solutions. Steroids harm the skin barrier more than they help often. And a lot of profit optimized drugstore creams are not meant to help. They're meant to temporarily soothe and juice the lifetime value of a customer by applying just enough to get them on a repeat purchase model. And so there was a huge need for something that would actually be effective and gentle and not harm the skin like steroids. So it took a while to convince, to go to Amber and say, hey, you have sensitive skin, everything irritates it. Do you want to try this lobster stuff? But eventually Bob convinced me to convince her. And we gave her one of the prototype samples of this lobster cream, and she started applying it. And within days, it was significantly calmed down. The dryness was going away, the scaling, the flaking was going away. And within 2 weeks, it was like she never had it. And it was crazy.
That's amazing.
It completely changed her life. And that was the moment for us where not only did we believe in it, it worked for Amber. And we knew, even though this was an N of 1, she has tried everything. We need to lean into this and figure out how this is working and bring this to others. So that's why we started Marin.
Wow, that's just such an interesting story. And when I thought about your journey, I was imagining that you were sort of going through all these tests and trying the lobster ingredients on different problems, but you really just came to the problem very quickly. So it sounds like it was serendipity.
It really was. And I reflect on that with a lot of gratitude, because I'm very entrepreneurial. Amber is too. We've started other startups, and we've been involved in other startups that have gone off to go and raise capital and begin to really get off the ground. And I'm not saying we had it easy, but really all the things aligned for it to happen. We have followed on Amber's anecdotal test to give it to family and friends, and dozens turned into hundreds. We then did more in vitro studies and began in vivo studies. And then we begin to get the product out there, and there's no question of product market fit, which I think is the most essential early milestone for a startup in a business. I think you need to find product market fit. Let's get past finding a problem that's large enough and an effective solution. Find product market fit, then later find profitable and repeatable modes of customer acquisition. But product market fit is so hard to achieve in the way that unicorn brands like us do. We have now thousands and thousands of people on our waiting list after selling out for like the 5th or 6th time. And we've been responsible operators on the supply chain side. The demand is so big, people are finding my personal phone number online. I don't even know how. And I'm getting calls every day, emails every day. People are asking us to never, ever stop selling this, never sell it to big pharma, so the efficaciousness and the message isn't diluted. And we are just the grateful and hardworking stewards bringing it to people.
The hard part, though, you find the product, a product people are responding to, then you have to build it. You got the 90% of the work is ahead of you. How do you go from Amber recovering, you do some, tests with some friends and family, nobody's going to the hospital with terrible rashes, it seems to be working. What are the steps?
Well, you have to figure out how to produce it. You have to source, you have to produce, you have to ethically batch and produce viable legal products and you have to create a funnel. You have to create an initial channel and then scale to different channels of demand. So those would be the basic building blocks. So after you get from anecdote in a skincare product, you go to 50 participant 6-week clinical safety testing and micro testing and make sure that you comply with all the legal things that you need.
Well, I think that's important too, because I think a lot of the new brands popping out are not necessarily doing all that work in the background. I think the other thing that I love about your story is that everybody's trying to attack wrinkles. And like, it turns out all everybody really wanted was like to cure their itchy skin. I love that you came at it from a different angle that was so practical, so sort of wholesome.
Well, that's a good point. I think there were some really intentional decisions that went against the grain for what some advisors recommended we may consider. One of them was, I went through I-Corps, and Amber and I went through Greenlight Maine and Top Gun and all of the different entrepreneurial training things.
Could you just tell for the audience what I-Corps is?
I-Corps is in early stage. I would say it's an entrepreneurial training course that teaches you how to go about performing customer discovery, understanding the business model canvas, building the initial building blocks of like a value proposition, a product market fit, target audience, messaging, and that really initial stuff around the concept of the business. And one of the things about I-Corps that was interesting, as I was sitting around all the MIT MBAs and engineers, and they thoughtfully and rightfully so would bring us back to, okay, but let's think about what market to introduce it to first. What are the different markets and applications? And let's scientifically validate everything first. And it's like, that's a really cool conceptual idea, but I feel that I'm talking to a bunch of faculty members and scientists here that have unlimited budgets to go explore everything and seemingly unlimited time to spend the next 10 years of their life validating a concept instead of going out and executing on it.
Right.
Why would I go out and perform all the possible clinical studies to investigate degree of wrinkle reduction or smoothness? Why don't we do that? But let's build a business solving big issues and then use cash flow to invest in those in vitro studies, which I'm so proud that we've done. That's exactly what we've done. Now we know the other verticals, and those are really exciting. But we've entered our market with the 80-20 of what we needed to get to market, and it has served us so well because we've learned everything on the fly as we go. We've built the plane as it's been going. The plane's now taking off. It's assembled. We're assembling the next parts of the plane.
Well, entrepreneurs want to be in business, right? And if you've got enough there, perfect is the enemy of good, right? And so you hit the marketplace and it just blows up pretty quickly, right?
Within 2 months, sold out of our first initial batch. So it was a humbling first month of launching and then learning how to pull the levers in the different traction channels. So organic social, paid social, influencer, search marketing, and then PR and news stories were the big thing. We like to think of it as telling stories at scale. It started with local news stories, then regional, and then national news stories. And it's been a cycle for us of stock up with inventory. Takes about a month and a half for a news cycle to kind of go through, pick us up and run, sell out that quarter, rinse and repeat. And I don't mean to say that with a lack of empathy or gratitude, but that's from the business side. That's how we've been doing and growing. And every time we blow up like that, it's like a small raise every time because it's all cash flow, almost no customer acquisition cost, very low marketing spend. And then you get to continue to build the parts of the business as you go forward. And we've learned a lot through doing that. We've learned a lot through not linear and predictable growth, but oscillatory, very explosive growth and what we need to have in place to make that happen. We're actually just in the come down one of the oscillations right now where we just grew massively, straight 18-hour days for the last month and a half just to get things out the door and continue to nurture opportunities coming forward when we restock. We're pretty deep into working on a rebrand. We understand what the org chart looks like a year, 2 year, 3 year from now. We understand the vision and the direction to become a category leader in dry damaged skin, starting with a strong D2C and followed on with appropriate retail partners that can mutually storytell with us. And the team that it's going to take to get there is really excited to be investing in bringing on the right people, the right experienced talent not convenient talent, not talent that happens to be in our network right now, but the right talent, and really begin to scale this and turn our oscillations into like stairs of growth where we don't experience inventory gaps because we're able to have the team to manage each element of growing this business explosively every time these type of events happen.
Stick with us, and we'll talk about Marin's supply chain, their plans for growth, and how they've bootstrapped with Maine-based grants from organizations like MTI, the Maine Technology Institute. For a blue economy to thrive, people need to use more sustainable products. But which products? And will consumers actually adopt them? Innovators like you are hustling to figure this out. Spark number 9 can tell you if there's demand for your product. Spark markets your product before it's built using online advertising so you launch smarter. Have a big idea? Vet it with Spark before you build. Visit Spark online at www.sparkno9.com or find them on LinkedIn. Maine Venture Fund is a state-sponsored venture fund here in Maine with a mission to support the highest potential Maine-based startup companies by investing early-stage capital. Maine Venture Fund's goal is to accelerate job growth and economic opportunity for the people of Maine. Learn more at mainventurefund.com. We're back with Happy Planet. I have so many questions. First, are there enough lobsters to support your activity? I mean, what happens to that chain, and how do you procure your lobster liquid?
There are enough lobsters. I can confirm. I believe that with our level of efficiency right now and yield, if we achieved 100% utilization at Luke's Lobster, we'd be supporting our business size of somewhere between 50 to 65 million a year in annual revenue. So we're not there yet, but we'll be there. So it is important to work on increasing, when you think about a supply chain, there's you can increase your volume up to 100% utilization. You can increase your efficiency and volume are like functions of utilization. Then you can expand your streams of supply. So expand to other lobster processors. And it'll be fairly simple to do that. There are some technology improvements that need to be put in place to make it really financially worthwhile that we're working on with Luke's. It's really important to us to be able to not just be extractive. I heard, I think it was Bree Warner from ASF say this at an event recently, to not just be extractive, but circular in our approach for creating value on our end for our customers and then mutually giving back value in terms of the exchange of cash for resource to the supplier. Right now we are growing the operation with Luke's, and we're in our second year of collecting these lobster glycoproteins. They're a waste byproduct in lobster processors, so they go right down the drain. So we've developed a proprietary way that's both sustainable and ethical in the way that it's collecting this stuff from lobsters, literally go right down the drain. It's only collecting from lobsters that would already go to become seafood. So it's really a true value add. And to make it a real value add for Luke's, the cash that they're receiving needs to be greater and worthwhile at scale than the human capital and materials and time invested in collecting that thing.
And that's working out, presumably.
So it's getting there.
It's going to work out.
Absolutely.
Luke seems like a wonderful partner to have on this road with his own successes and his own scaling of a big lobster business. So that's pretty exciting. You have this breakout product, and in a way, it just seems like that creates a lot of pressure. Will the next one be as amazing? And I'm just kind of curious, are you going to go deeper with lobster? Because I know there's chitin in the shells, and that's an ingredient often used in skincare. Or are you just going to keep your secret sauce in all the products? How do you envision growing a line in the specific circumstances you are in right now?
I think that's an excellent question, because in the beginning of our business, as we were spinning out of Dr. Bob's company, so Dr. Bob was a faculty member. He retired. He formed a company around commercializing lobster byproducts. And that company's goal is to find all the different applications for lobster byproducts and position them. That is not our goal. Our goal is not to investigate X, Y, and Z different byproducts of lobster processing and find new commercial applications for that. Our goal is to increase quality of life of the communities that we want to serve. Right now, we're very focused on eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, dry, damaged skin. And that represents a large part of the population. We're not going to be exhausted of serving that population anytime soon. We have achieved amazing product market fit. So now we will continue to serve them in different ways and solve as many of their problems as we can and find new people like them until we reach 100%. Or that's not a literal statement, but we would continue to search for new customers that model our target customer while we offer more products and expand the line to service dry, damaged skin in different ways. For example, a scalp serum, a non-moisture stripping shampoo, a lip balm, a lip treatment, a heel balm, a hand cream, all these different things that service, Amber is thinking about it in terms of being able to make the best products possible for every part of the body. So everything from the scalp and the hair to the skin, and you want to treat your skin on your face differently than you would on your legs. So make custom products for these use cases, but not vanity products, really big problem solvers, and not worried at all about our ability to introduce amazing new products because we have an amazing, novel, active in technology, and we have the best product person in the world, which is Amber. She lived the problem. She knows it very, very well. And she's a skincare junkie. So, we have medicine cabinets here full of products. She knows what good products feel like and good and bad products feel like. I have ultimate confidence in her ability to introduce those game-changing new products that will fit in different parts of our customers' routine. But, it's interesting. I think a lot of companies in the blue economy space get focused on, let's find all the different ways to position this, and this. It creates distraction. It doesn't create traction.
Or just the best products. I want to talk a little bit about the team. You have a co-founder, and you guys have co-founded before, and there's a lot of value to having a co-founder, maybe some challenges too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
There's pros and cons to everything. Amber and I have a really unique partnership. We've been dating for almost 9 years now. We met on the first day of bioengineering undergrad at Maine, and we were best friends first, and then eventually began to get into a relationship. And I am so proud of where our relationship is in terms of our ability to work together as life partners and founders. It really comes down to communication. All relationships, I think, come down to an agreed upon terms of engagement and communication. I'm saying that in hindsight. I'm not saying we came into it with that, but now we've developed that awareness and understanding. It's really cool to feel that we can be so candid with one another and be so honest and share our feelings. It's very, very simple concepts. Be honest about how you feel. Communicate it in a way that doesn't shut somebody down, but opens it up for conversation. Be aligned at all times, whether it's a leadership team or a relationship and partnership. Very simple things that you could find in any team building or like founder, co-founder relationship type books. But it's hard to actually find in the real world. Having a co-founder has been amazing. I don't know anything about skincare. Now I know a little bit, but we complement each other so well. If we were a tech company, Amber would be the software developer and the product person, and I'd be like the guy out pitching, talking to people, getting the energy going, talking to the reporters and trying to build the business side of it.
So you've got your eye on the ball, and you've done this just bootstrapping, if I understand correctly. Is that right? How do you do this?
Well, we're very fortunate to be in Maine. This is a big plug, big time plug. Having organizations like MTI like reigns above everyone else in terms of our ability to be in business. MTI has given us hundreds of thousands across our different companies in our short career. 5 years ago, I was graduating undergrad. 3 years ago, graduated grad school. They have given us hundreds and thousands in grants to build businesses here in Maine that are going to change the economy. Without MTI, we would have not been bootstrapped. We certainly would have had investors. We're going to be successful either way. So this is just a how, but so much credit goes back to MTI because in the beginning of the business, you just got to build the fundamental things, the supply chain, find the manufacturer, build the branding, do the regulatory things, introduce the product with a certain amount of inventory, build your funnel, do all these things, get marketing spend. All these things require capital, and you can grind it out and go to the farmer's market as much as you want, but those things don't scale. And we've always built things that's like scaled from the beginning. And to be able to do that, we needed money. That's the what. And there's a bunch of hows. Can we get a loan? No. Do we have the cash on hand? No. Can we go raise capital? Maybe. Can we get it from a grant? Let's try that first. And we were so fortunate to come from academia, understand how to write a grant, understand how to pitch, persuasion, thoughtful construction of a grant application, things like that. That was really important. That chemistry lab that I worked in, and I started getting NASA grants in junior year, that was huge because I've gone on to, probably over 700K in grants now that I've been able to bring in for different companies just from that ability to write grants that started in undergrad. So it's been bootstrapped. Every time we have a PR event, it's like raising a little micro seed round with cash flow, and have surrounded ourselves very thoughtfully with excellent all-star advisors that help us build this business as we continuously have more leverage and build our cash position and can bring on new people. So
are you just going to be able to grow this organically, or are you going to have to fundraise? Like how's this going to work out?
Yeah, we absolutely have a good amount of interest, and I make sure to meet it with gratitude. I don't blame them for being, so there's a level of self-confidence and self-worth that we've cultivated to understand the opportunity here, but not meet them with like, we don't need you. That's very short-sighted and not thoughtful, not empathetic. Right. We don't need to raise capital right now.
But you're not out going to do a Series A or B or, in the near future.
Not in the near future, but I think in the next 16 months, or 18 months, we'll raise a seed round, and that seed round will be a very different version of a seed round than comps in our category, other than like celebrity-led founders that launched and had a huge platform already. It'll be more like that type of seed round. But in investors, we look for smart capital with relevant experience in our category. So skincare, beauty, D2C or retail. And interestingly, there's one that you won't be surprised to hear, which is ethical capital. So people that care and align with our mission of helping people and the planet. So the kind of investors that would align with us in joining 1% of the planet, or 1% for the fishermen, and donating our proceeds to different lobster community associations. And then I would say one that I'm still developing what I mean to be able to extrinsically communicate it is thoughtful capital. It sounds egotistical and negative, but I've been really unimpressed with some conversations I've had with investors because of the lack of thoughtfulness. I want to really be excited about the people that I write my check to bring into the company, and Amber wants to be excited about who she allows to become part of the company. And there are conversations we've had with investors that are clear, I don't understand where you're coming from. I don't agree with why you think like that. And I love that you're out there trying to help build businesses. Ours might not be the best fit for you, and that's fine. So thoughtful capital, still figuring out the words to describe that, but it's meaningful to me.
Well, it's a family. You run a business, you have a business, literally it's a family in your case. It's a very intimate thing, and your shareholders are part of the team, at that early level with those seed investors. So you're right to be careful who you let into your family. I think that makes a lot of sense. What advice would you have for other entrepreneurs?
I have a lot of advice for entrepreneurs. It's mostly all personal development and advice for them as people rather than skill acquisition or read this book or acquire a concept, with the guiding principle there being that the potential of the business ultimately reaches the ceiling of the leadership team and the founders. And there's no way around that. You need to develop yourself as a person to be able to be the person capable of building what you want to build, and know who you are so others can't dictate it for you. Earlier, I mentioned logic, intuition, and intention for the three things that we consider to be the foundations of a good decision. When you need to lean on intention, you better know who you are and be confident in yourself so you're not on shaky ground when you make hard decisions based on intuition. And I would say know your why, know your North Star. If someone were to ask you what you wanted in your business, everything that you wanted in your business to happen was to happen tomorrow, what would happen? Know that.
Thank you, Patrick, for taking the time to tell your story to Happy Planet. Since the recording of the podcast, Patrick and Amber have continued to blow away sales. They just can't seem to make enough. They've achieved what every brand dreams of, perfect market fit. And they've done it through upcycling of a marine waste product. It's pretty amazing, though I must admit I'm not entirely surprised at their success. Though a young entrepreneur, Patrick's poise and grace are truly unparalleled. In preparation for the holiday season, they brought a new holiday mini gift size to the market, and more products are on their way. Maybe one of them will make us all look better on Zoom. Happy Planet Podcast was recorded and hosted by Abigail Carroll. I am also the executive producer. The talented Dylan Hoyer is our producer and editor. Composer George Brandel Egloff created our theme music. Learn more about my work and get in touch by visiting happyplanetcapital.com.